I need to start this video with a confession. For a very long time, I thought that I was practicing the Fertility Awareness Method. I genuinely thought that because my app was telling me I was ovulating and I was either abstaining from sex or making sure that I was using other contraceptive methods, I was doing the FEMM method. I would always say I can feel when I'm ovulating. I would check my cervical mucus and I would know. I could tell because my skin would just look a certain way that it only looks in that short time of ovulation. It's not that I was necessarily wrong, but I also wasn't 100% right. So that's what this video is going to be. Getting into what it is and what it isn't and clearing up any misconceptions about it, because there is a lot of misinformation about it online in the sense that people think they're doing it and they're not. People think that there's certain statistics to it that are really bad when that's just not true. There's a lot to get into. So this video, I'm going to clear all of it up because it is essential that if you're going to be using this method as birth control, you need to have it down and know what you are doing, or you will get pregnant. One of the reasons that most people like to dismiss this very quickly is because they think that it is the rhythm method, which is having an idea and counting down the days back from when you were on your period to when you might potentially be fertile. And that is not effective. I'm a certified naturopathy practitioner. I am not a doctor. None of this is medical advice, and you should always check with your doctor before, trying new supplements, trying new dietary changes. This is educational information on published research, and I'm going to leave in the description all of the studies to back this up so you can go and look for it yourself, and also just a mix of my own personal experience. So anytime I say I think or, I believe or, just talk about my experience, that's my opinion. And when I'm stating specific facts to studies, it will be clear and it will be also listed in the description. Okay, let's start with what the FEMM method is not. This is where people, including me for a while, go wrong. So let's talk about the rhythm method and what that is. The rhythm method is probably what your grandmother used or people used before we had hormonal birth control, condoms, other kinds of contraceptive. Only way to try to not have children was to kind of have an idea of when you might be fertile and try to abstain from sex. That is not the FEMM method. The rhythm method is basically just counting days down from your last period, and usually it counts ovulation as day 14. But the thing is, that's not always when people ovulate, because depending on your cycle, you may ovulate at day 15, 16, 17. It depends on your body and your specific cycle. And that is why I care so much about women understanding their cycles, because if you don't know your own body and you don't know when you're fertile, you should. It's your body and your cycle, and no one's going to be able to figure it out for you other than you. The rhythm method is not great because it does not account for things like cycle irregularity, stress, illness, or travel, or just things that can affect when you ovulate. This is why a lot of people say natural birth control doesn't work, because they're thinking of this method, which has up to a 25% failure rate. So I don't blame them for thinking that. But again, the rhythm method is not the same thing as the Sympto-Thermal Method. All right, the problem with the cycle apps. This one's big, and this is where it's important that a lot of women understand the distinction, because I think a lot of women believe that they are tracking their cycle just because it's on an app. And again, I was one of these women. For about a year, I thought that's all you had to do, and that's just not true. Period tracking apps work by tracking your cycle based off of your last period or the information that you've already put into it. They're using an algorithm and making a statistical guess. They don't know when you actually ovulate unless you are putting in the real biomarker data, which again, most women are not taking strip tests. They're not checking their cervical mucus. They're not looking at their basal body temperature. So the app is not going to be totally accurate, and it's definitely not accurate enough to base your pregnancy planning around that. So this is basically just a more sophisticated version of the rhythm method, but again, it is still not the FEMM method. And again, for a long time, I thought that I was doing it correctly, and I thought I was good because honestly, I have a pretty regular cycle and I do know my body. I can tell when I am ovulating, but I can tell and I know my body. That's not a method. That is just guessing, hopeful guessing, and an educated guess, which I don't feel confident to turn around and teach you about to say this is going to be effective for you to not have a baby. So let's get into the FEMM method, what it actually is, and how to actually do it. The Sympto-Thermal Method, which is the most studied method of this fertility awareness methods, uses 3 different biomarkers, and you need to understand all 3 of them. First one is going to be basal body temperature. So to do this, you need a basal body thermometer. The difference between this and a regular thermometer is that this is going to show you the degrees of your temperature to the hundredths. It's not going to be just 1, it's going to be 2, because we'll get into it in a minute, but you need to have both decimal points to understand where you're actually at and use it as a proper biomarker. Your basal body temperature is your resting body temperature. Before waking up, before moving, before going to the bathroom, it needs to be checked first thing in the morning. And I'm gonna be honest, when I first started doing this, it was a learning curve because most of us wake up and we're tired and we don't really think, okay, the first thing I need to do is take my temperature. But once you get used to it, it's pretty easy. And also there are certain products, for example, Tempdrop, which can actually monitor your basal body temperature with just a little wrap around your arm. So I really like that one, and I'm gonna leave the link in my description to go get that. If you're new to this method, you're like, I don't even wanna try the whole waking up and putting it in my mouth, I just wanna have it easy to go, that is an option as well. Before ovulation, your temperature is relatively low and stable. After ovulation, you have a surge of progesterone, which causes a sustained rise in your temperature about 0.2 degrees Celsius and 0.3 to 0.4 degrees Fahrenheit. That rise stays elevated until your next period. So what does this actually tell you? Basal body temperature tells you that you have already ovulated. It confirms ovulation. It is not the only thing that you do, and you can't just take your temperature and know, okay, I'm ovulating today because my temperature is low. You find out after the fact of looking back at all the data. So basal body temperature alone is not enough to predict, okay, this is when I'm ovulating, because it doesn't account for the first part of your fertile window, which is when you are fertile and you are most likely to actually get pregnant. Moving on to cervical mucus, this is going to be the second biomarker that you can track to do the true Sympto-Thermal Method. This is the one that I'm very familiar with and I have done for a while very well because honestly, it's just pretty easy to tell. It's very noticeable, at least for me, who's very body aware. So if you are not currently aware of what your discharge looks like throughout the month, just start taking note of it. When you go to the bathroom and you go to wipe after you pee, just take a look at it and be like, how is she looking today? Or look in your underwear and see what does it look like? Is it creamy? Is it sticky? Is it egg white? Is it clear? What does it look like? Throughout your cycle, the consistency and appearance of your cervical mucus is going to change. Right after your period, it's going to be dry, or there's going to be very little mucus because your estrogen and progesterone are still very low. But as estrogen starts rising in your follicular phase, you might notice more of a creamy texture that kind of looks like white lotion. And as you approach ovulation and estrogen peaks, this is the one that looks like a clear egg white. If you literally put your fingers up there and press it between your fingers, you will see a string like an egg white. This is your peak fertile mucus, and it creates a channel to allow the sperm to get through to get to your uterus. This is when you are highest fertility. After your ovulation, your progesterone kicks in, and then your mucus is going to start to be thick, sticky, and opaque, which is going to be to actually block any sperm from entering because an egg has already been conceived, or it thinks it has. So like I said, I'm very familiar with this and I've been doing this for years. And again, the reason I say I know when I'm ovulating is because when my cervical mucus is egg white, stretchy, it is also that clear mark in extra energy, extra libido, and creativity. I can just feel the difference. But again, that's not the full method. It's just checking your mucus and thinking, okay, it's good. You need all three of these biomarkers together. Okay, moving on to the last one, which is going to be your cervical position. Throughout your cycle, your cervix actually changes position, firmness, and openness. Around ovulation, your cervix is high, soft, open, and wet. After ovulation, it drops lower, becomes firmer, and closes up. When you're on your period, that is when it's going to be its lowest and its firmest. And you can tell this by actually checking with your fingers, or if you use a menstrual cup, you've probably noticed this. When you go to use your menstrual cup, you feel your cervix kind of quickly, and it's pretty easy to feel around it and then stick the cup up behind it. Whereas when you are ovulating, or in your fertile window, if you put your fingers up there, it takes a little bit to find your cervix, that little knob that's up in there. And something that I recommend that everybody do, especially if you are in a relationship, is have your partner check this with you. Let them feel when your cervix is low, let them feel when your cervix is up high, and let them see the difference between your cervical mucus. And so that way you guys are both aware of, okay, this is when I'm fertile and this is when I'm not, if you really do not want to have a baby yet. Or the opposite, if you are trying to conceive, having your partner know about your biomarkers and when you're fertile and when you're not also makes it very easy. The other rule with the FEMM method is to always treat, if you do not know whether you're fertile or not, treat every day like a fertile day if you are not 100% sure. These are the 3 very important biomarkers. So again, if someone is telling you natural methods aren't good, the rhythm method doesn't work, tracking your cycle doesn't work, you're not just tracking your cycle on an app. You are looking at your own body's clear tell that you are fertile. A little bonus tool, LH strips detect the luteinizing hormone, which is the hormone that causes you to ovulate and drop the egg. Now, this is not technically part of the Sympto-Thermal Method. However, again, I just like to give you a little extra. LH search typically happens 24 to 36 hours before you ovulate. So an LH test that comes back positive means ovulation is imminent. All right, so how to actually use FEMM step by step. So how do you take this information that I've just given you and actually turn it into a practice so that you are effectively preventing pregnancy naturally? The truth is that you have to chart every day. And like I said, there are tools that you can use that make this easier. For example, the Tempdrop that I'm gonna link below, which I think again is actually perfect for this, because one of the critiques of the FEMM method is that, not everybody has the time or the luxury or the privilege to be able to track their cycle and have that time, you know what I'm saying? And so I totally understand that, because again, even me who has lots of time, I forget, and we're all human, and it's easy to wake up and go to the bathroom and forget, oh shoot, I need to take my thermometer. So that's why I really like the Tempdrop. So you record your basal body temperature every morning, you check your cervical mucus throughout your cycle, and you write down everything. Energy, mood, cervical patterns. The true way to do the FEMM method is to track every single day. And I know to some people they're gonna think that sounds like way too much. There's no way that I can do that. I understand that it is gonna be a learning curve, and I'm not gonna lie about the fact that it takes a while to get used to. But think about how many things you do every day as soon as you wake up, like clockwork. The first thing, I promise you, the first thing you do when you wake up is wake up and grab your phone and check it. Literally, all you have to do is take the learning curve to make that, instead of checking your phone first thing, wake up, grab the thermometer, put it in your mouth. Or if you don't want to have to deal with that, again, you can buy the Tempdrop. Your fertile window is not just the day that you ovulate. It is the 5 days beforehand, because sperm can live in your vagina for up to 5 days at a time. And then when people are trying to conceive, they tell them actually start trying 5 days before ovulation, because that's when you're more likely to get pregnant. Because again, that cervical mucus is literally made. Everything in your body right now is made for sperm to survive and be able to get to your eggs. So those 5 days before your ovulation, and then 3 days after your confirmed temperature drop, is your fertile window, like fertile bubble, we would say. When taught and practiced correctly, the Sympto-Thermal Method actually has a perfect use of 99.6%, and it is comparable to hormonal contraceptive. A 2021 study published in BJM Sexual and Reproductive Health actually found that app-based FEMM using multiple biomarkers had a failure rate of 1.8 in 100 women per year with perfect use. Typical use, which means real life and not perfect, like if you forget a day or you miss a day of your tracking, which again won't happen if you just buy the Tempdrop, is around 98% with proper instruction. The gap between typical and perfect use is significantly smaller when women are given the proper instruction. A big question here is, well, what if I want to have sex when I'm fertile? So the official Sympto-Thermal Method, and the one that I just gave you stats on, is statistics based off of women just abstaining from sex in their fertile window entirely. Now, obviously, you can understand why that kind of sucks, because it's when you want sex the most. So there are some options. Just understand that this is, while it's still a fertility awareness method, and while you are still being aware of your biomarkers, which already covers you a lot more than just the rhythm method, the advice I'm about to give is not the official Sympto-Thermal Method. In that one, you just abstain from sex. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't do that. Not every time, at least. I try to, but if you are going to have sex when you're fertile, there are some options for you. So I would recommend that you use a barrier method, like condoms or a diaphragm. And on top of that, you also use another form of contraceptive, which is withdrawal. So if you are really, really nervous and you don't, if you really do not, absolutely 100% do not want to get pregnant at all, then your best bet is to just abstain from sex when you are fertile. However, if you are going to have sex when you're fertile, just do so with 2 forms of contraceptive, like condoms, and have him pull out. I have been doing this, and again, this is just my personal opinion. This isn't a statistic, this isn't study, this is just my personal life experience. I have been doing this for 4 years. And I'm mad fertile because, again, I take very good care of my hormone health. And I am not pregnant. I've never had a pregnancy scare or gotten pregnant. So just take that with a grain of salt. Understand, what you're doing. Understand that there is still risk when it comes to the fertility awareness method if you are going to have sex on it, and that the stats that I gave you on the effectiveness are not the same as the stats if you do choose to have sex. Me personally, I'm okay with those numbers, so that's why I choose to take that risk. Just understand that it is very important that you get this distinction, and if you don't want to abstain from sex when you're fertile, that's okay. Like, you don't have to, but just know you are still taking a risk because, again, you are fertile. Who FEMM is for and who it is not for. I want to be really honest about this because I don't want anyone walking away from this video thinking that FEMM is for every single person, because it's not, unfortunately. FEMM works best when you have a regular cycle. Not necessarily perfect, but not widely unpredictable. You're willing to chart daily and learn the method properly, ideally from a certified FEMM or from a solid course, not just an app. You have a partner who understands and respects the method. You're okay with using backup protection in your fertile window, like condoms and withdrawal. You're in a stable life position where you don't have very high stress, you're not ill, and you are not having really bad sleep, because these things affect your basal body temperature. The truth is that FEMM requires more than the pill, and I will never try to sit here and tell you that the pill is not more convenient. It definitely is, in the sense of you don't have to keep up with a ton of things. You can take it and know, I'm covered as far as hormonal contraceptive. However, with anything and with birth control, it is a matter of outweighing the risk and the benefit and choosing for yourself what is worth the risk and what is worth the benefit. For me personally, nothing is worth the risk of going on birth control for me. And so I'm willing to take on, choose your heart. I'm willing to sit down, do the FEMM method, take time with the tracking, be extremely aware of my cycle, and hold on to that responsibility. Whereas some women, it's just gonna be more convenient for them to take the pill, and they choose the risk of the pill to outweigh the risk of the FEMM method, or the, demandingness of it. And that is understandable. So what if you have irregular cycles? What if you're like, Isabella, I have PCOS, I have irregular cycles, or just my cycles are never regular and I don't know why. This is where the conversation gets nuanced and tricky. And again, I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you you'll be fine if I don't think that's the case. Irregular cycles do not automatically disqualify you from the FEMM method, but it is going to require more of you and more attention to detail and more attention to tracking. The good news too is that FEMM can help you actually figure out why your cycles are irregular and see what might be happening or not be happening. But if your cycles are very irregular, I do recommend that you work with a certified FEMM instructor, which also I forgot to mention that in the video, but I am not. I am not a certified FEMM instructor. This is just all research that I have, found on my own. And again, I'm linking my studies in the description, and this is my only intent with this is just to make you more educated about it. But I am pushing you to go find somebody who is specialized in this, because I am not. So to recap everything, the FEMM method is not the rhythm method. Your app is probably not doing what you think it was. The Sympto-Thermal Method uses 3 real biomarkers to confirm and predict accurately when you are ovulating. And when practiced correctly being not having sex at all in that fertile time period, means that it will be as effective with perfect use as hormonal contraceptive. If you want to learn more about FEMM properly and feel 100% solid in this, this video isn't for you to walk away feeling like, okay, now I know how to do the FEMM method and I'm gonna go willy-nilly and, as long as I'm not having sex when I'm fertile, I'll be fine. I want you, and I implore you, to go get a little more education on it and try it for yourself. And again, if you are not sure, treat every single day like you are fertile. Use condoms and use withdrawal every time you have sex if you are not 100% sure when you are ovulating, what your cycle looks like, and you have not been taught by an FEMM instructor. And if you are in the process of coming off of hormonal birth control right now and you want some help with the transition, that is exactly what I help girls with. I help them come off of birth control and get their bodies back to a regular cycle so that they can start practicing this method if it's what they want to do. Alright guys, I hope this video was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments and what you think of the FEMM method. Did you know about this? Did you know the distinction between the FEMM and the rhythm method? And did you know that it actually includes not having sex at all? I didn't until after I made this video, but that's exactly why I think this conversation is so important, because you might think that you know what's going on. Like, I really thought I was doing everything right, and I was not. And again, I was like Miss Hormone Queen who thought she knew everything. Not like I thought I knew everything. I never think I know everything. But the point is, I say this online all the time, I could be wrong, and I'm not someone who can like who will act like they couldn't be wrong. There is always new research coming out. There is always new things coming out, especially with health. Like, I could always be wrong. So that's why I implore you to go check with someone who's certified, and also take everything I say with a grain of salt. Know that this isn't medical advice. I'm not a doctor. This is my opinion. It's just a girl's opinion, and making you educated and listing the facts of something that I think may help you. Anyways, guys,